Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Outsiders.
I'm Seth Austin.
And I'm Todd Pickering.
We're a couple of actors stuck on the outside, trying to make our way to the inside of the biz.
Hollywood, baby.
That wasn't bad.
Not at all. It didn't take 1,000 times like we predicted last episode.
No, it didn't. It did not. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. We're going to start out big and bold today. We haven't talked about this issue yet on the show, but Todd and we talked about this beforehand. I can speak for him for a second. We are both fully behind the Black Lives Matter movement. We fully support it. I myself have gone out and protested a handful of times, and that's not to say that anyone who supports the movement needs to protest at this point to prove their support. If someone doesn't feel safe or comfortable protesting, that's completely understandable, whether it be for coronavirus reasons or any reason whatsoever. There's a million ways to show support. Todd, for instance, actually couldn't go out and protest despite wanting to because he has to take care of his sickly mother. But there it is, right? We fully support the Black Lives Matter movement. We hope that it continues to move forward. I'll probably end up at yet another protest this Sunday. We hope it gains momentum. And the way it is gaining momentum already is within the Hollywood community.
Absolutely. And I just want to jump in and say, please be safe. All right, Seth?
Yeah.
You're wearing your mask?
I am absolutely wearing my mask out there at the protest. Thank you for keeping me honest on that one. Yeah.
I drove to pay. My mom is in advanced stages of Alzheimer's, and there's a lot of COVID in her wing. She's fine, except for the Alzheimer's, of course. And they're coming out of it. But I heard on the radio that one of the protests organized in Hollywood, the reporter said, I have been here for an hour and I have yet to find without a mask on.
Yeah. And at all the protests I went to, everyone was wearing masks. And I meant to mention earlier that they were all 100% peaceful. There was never a moment where I thought that violence was possible. I'll be a little controversial here and say that the law enforcement that was there didn't feel necessary. They protect the protest in some cases, but in other cases they felt a little bit intimidating, to be honest. The ones that were there to protect, they were, you could tell that they were there to protect. So anyway.
And we're coming out of this. I got a haircut, so I would like to join you in one of those peaceful protests. And
you want to show off your haircut at the protest now?
No, we're still in a pandemic. I'm just saying, so I can't, I did go out. That's the first thing I have done, except for grocery shopping. So we're waking up out of this, and I'm going to have to look to my friends for safety. So you're it, buddy. I would like to join you on that. So let me know about that protest this week. I
absolutely will.
And I will leave if I feel it's unsafe health-wise, but.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I have felt there are moments within each protest where social distancing wasn't fully possible, just because of where I was in a particular crowd. Like one street got a little bit narrow because it was being blocked by National Guard vehicles. So it became relatively impossible to social distance. But if I had been thinking more about it, I would have just stayed. If I was really concerned about it, I would have stayed towards the back of the whole thing so that I didn't have to worry about that. So if you're really concerned about social distancing, which is completely valid, I from what I've seen, it's possible to stay socially distanced, I would say, pretty much all the time, as long as you're constantly aware of it. Granted, that is a very difficult thing to do. So take that all with a grain of salt and don't do anything that doesn't make you feel safe. And for those of you who are only listening, not watching, Todd's haircut looks bomb. If I may invoke a late 90s popular word, it looks incredible.
Thank you.
Although I do kind of miss the craziness a little bit as well. I don't want to dedicate a whole show to Todd's hair, at least not yet.
Yes. Because important things going on.
Very important things going on. Going back to what I was saying earlier about Hollywood kind of taking the ball and running with it at least a little bit right away, I saw that Ava DuVernay, the mastermind producer behind When They See Us, about the Central Park Five. In 1989, there were 5 people of color who, of course, were they were accused of harming a jogger in Central Park, and it was found out that it was complete nonsense. And Ava DuVernay story, When They See Us, is all about that. And now she has already gotten greenlit for a new project about police brutality, to raise awareness about that, which I think is a beautiful thing. It's called LEAP, Law Enforcement Accountability Project. And knowing Hollywood and the artistic community, I mean, this is just one of many positive things that will be coming out of incredibly tragic events that have happened lately. It makes me feel good about things despite all of the tragedy that has been happening. And you see not just that, but you see conversations happening all over the place. A friend.
So wait a minute. Leap, is that
Yeah.
is this one show, or is she doing?
No, it's a package of projects. It's almost its own. Let me see if I can pull this up. I have an initiative to showcase police brutality through the activist lens. Is the title of this article. It's on Forbes.
Right. I looked at it too,
Yeah.
but I mean, so I was just letting, just
The
to
initiative will
reiterate to
fund-
the listeners.
Yeah, the
that
initiative will fund 25 short-term projects, including film, theater, music, and literature over the next 2 years through Array Alliance, DuVernay's nonprofit for diversity in film. It will have a $3 million budget backed by Ford Foundation and producer Ryan Murphy, who we have talked about before on the show. I don't know how I forgot to mention that to you before.
I see. There we go. I didn't. Yeah, this was your thing, and it just never stops.
Can't get away from that guy.
But I've worked for a fundraiser for Ava DuVernay through the catering cocktail company I work for.
Yeah.
So have not met her, of course.
Yeah.
Melissa Etheridge stood right next to me at the bar, and there were amazing people there, and it was an amazing fundraiser, and it was beautifully run. And I mean, of course, I was just there to serve cocktails, but wow,
still,
here in Hollywood, people, you're all in this. We're all in this together.
Yeah, we're all in this together, and there will be, of course, plenty of other content that continues to come out that isn't about this stuff, but this stuff is finally getting a direct voice, and that is very important. And I'm sure that it will continue.
But it's moving into the arts, is what
right.
I mean.
Exactly.
And
the art.
What I love about this initiative, it's not just film. It's literature. It's music.
It's everything.
It's theater.
Right. Theater, which we will talk more about in this episode for sure, and throughout our series. And all the different conversations that have been happening include, piggybacking on the theater thing. Actors Equity sent out an email this morning saying that yes. There will be a virtual town hall about anti-Black practices within the theater community. That is the focus of it. That's not what it's called. The exact name of it slips my mind. Town hall title, but that's the Racial Justice Town Hall. That's what they're calling it. It's going to be
Wednesday,
Racial Justice Town Hall.
Thank you.
Wednesday, June 17th. But that's what it'll focus on, anti-Black practices within the theater community. And then
Equity, for those of you not in the know, is the stage union here for stage actors in the US. And Seth and I are members of that. In the UK, Actors Equity is all three of their mediums: television, film, and theater. So here's SAG-AFTRA.
SAG-AFTRA. We just got a new contract today for another episode. So, and then, my point is that there's going to be a lot more conversations like this happening. And that's a beautiful thing. I saw my friend, a mutual friend of ours, Trimaine, talking about diversity in improv. I mean, it's sort of trickling down. These conversations are being had as a direct result of these horrible tragedies.
Well, but being in the theater ourselves, diversity in theater is something I saw in high school back in the 80s and college. Also, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
In it's been a bigger deal in theater casting definitely than in film cast. Did you see one of Disney's first musical movies was they did Cinderella, not their Cinderella. They did the Rodgers and Hammerstein musical of Cinderella in 1997.
Right. Yes, I remember that, and I did see it.
So you did?
The Rodgers and Hammerstein one? Oh no, 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 no! I didn't. I saw. Sorry, I mixed it up. I have not seen that.
Well, it's and here's I mean, I looked it up. It's not on Disney Plus yet, and everybody's like, "Where is that?" It's a really good version. I remember seeing it. So Brandy, and I have to look up what Brandy's doing. Played Cinderella. Whitney Houston was the fairy godmother. Bernadette Peters was the wicked stepmother, and her wicked stepdaughters. One was black and one was white. For those that you don't know, Bernadette Peters is white. And then the prince was played by an actor, Paulo Montalban. He's Filipino. And his father was white. Victor Garber, big Broadway star, also does a lot of television. And the queen was played by Whoopi Goldberg, who is black. I mean, I know we're doing radio. I just assume everybody knows most of those stars that I've mentioned.
Yeah, I would hope so. If not,
I did research Paulo Montalban, and he's had a hard time of casting being racially stereotyped, after having done a 1997 series. But it's really great, and I hope that's on Disney Plus soon.
Yeah, I can't wait for it. My sister and her boyfriend gave me access to their Disney Plus, and I've been sort of devouring it slowly with my wife. So that's I'm looking forward.
Full disclosure, I haven't seen Disney Plus yet.
Todd, see, that's interesting because now I'm going to drop it in right here. Todd actually works indirectly for Disney. He does journalism for Disney. He's on a podcast called Mouse Planet, and yet he hasn't seen Disney Plus yet.
So let me clarify. Everybody asks. It's not for Disney. There are a million websites that are Disney content.
Right.
We are invited to Disneyland. So I write a monthly column and I'm the entertainment writer for Disneyland out here in California. And I write entertainment, and therefore my boss, who's out here, we also do Disney World in Florida. And so most of our writers are on the East Coast, but I get to go to the press events and I get to do the interviews. So if you check out YouTube, you'll see me doing a lot of interviews. But the point of this is Disney World is opening. This all ties together. Disney World is opening. I've got so many dates in my head, but they're opening in July. Two of the parks. I think the 11th, I want to say, go to mouseplanet.com, everybody. There's the plug. But they're opening July 11th, and then two more parks are opening the 15th. They have 4 total. And then on the 17th, which is Disneyland's birthday anniversary,
Ooh, I didn't know that.
Disneyland's going to open. Now, all of these are pending the safety issues in Orange counties, California and Florida. They're both Orange County, the parks are in, strangely enough. And so there's that going on. Disney World is under Actors Equity contract. Actors Equity has not approved people back yet.
Which I think is wise, to be honest.
I mean,
but
we're going through the union there.
Yep.
They're here in California, they use AGVA. There's another union for you, everybody. Oh gosh, we didn't research.
We didn't look up what it stands for. Let me see if I can do a very
Variety Artists. The American Guild of Variety Artists is what I'm going to say while Seth looks it up. So speaking of diversity casting, we'd like to direct you to Cooper Hall's Facebook page. He's an equity actor. He was cast in Frozen Live at Disney California Adventure Park. That is a live version of Frozen. They have the cast is 5 deep. He is a Black actor that was cast as one of the Hans, the evil prince. There was a Black Anna and a Black Elsa cast. So it was diverse when it opened. The director was Liesl Tommy. And now that I'm on the West Coast, I am just not into my on my Broadway, but I looked her up. She's actually a South African American.
Huh.
She was nominated for a Tony. She directed a play called, I wrote this down because there's no way, called Eclipse, starring Lupita Nyong'o. We've all heard of her, you know, Academy Award winning actress.
Yeah, just a little Academy Award winning actress. Actor.
Eclipsed was about, I want to say it was about a bunch of African women. So it was an entire female cast and it was written by a woman. So therefore it was the first time ever a Broadway show had an all female team, director, writer, cast.
Wow.
Ever in the history of Broadway.
And she's South African. So it was kind of, she was primed to pull a cast like that for Frozen.
So,
and
I mean,
that she did.
I'll let everybody read the article. But she cast, clearly she's always done diversity. And if you, I mean, we're not going to do a whole show on her, but diversity is her, you know, she was born in South Africa, so it's important to her. But Cooper Hall talks about how wonderful it was to be part of that. But as soon as the director went back to Broadway and the show opened, a show director came in, and the racism that he had to deal with it's
really
awful.
bad. Yeah, it's really the opposite of inspirational. It went from being this sort of beautiful project with all this diversity and this actor feeling like he had been cast not because of the color of his skin, but because he was a good actor. And then this other, show director, like, what do you call this second director that came in and did this sort of railroading?
I mean, in a Broadway show, back to teaching people, in a Broadway show, that's the job of the stage manager.
Right, that's the job of the stage manager.
To continue what the
director
director
actors
did.
equity. That's the actors equity rule. That's how it works in that particular union. But this being AGVA, the American Guild of Variety Artists.
I was right.
Which is Todd was 100% correct about. I guess the rules are a little different. So this second director came in, and this person was not kind. And it's, you know, what happened to this actor that Todd is talking about, this actor of color, was just tragic. And it shows the need for this, you know, it shows the need for these conversations to be had. These things are just, I mean, they've been going on for forever. As much as we've had diversity in casting, you know, it doesn't mean these problems have gone away. And I hope that people will eventually get to the point where it just doesn't matter, you know, who you're seeing up there playing a part, especially if it's something like Frozen in a world that doesn't exist. It's pure fantasy, right? So why should the viewer care what color the actor playing that role is, right? If that's distracting you from enjoying the performance, then, you know, that's on you. And it's hard, you know, because we've operated under a certain set of people operate under a certain way of thinking, and getting past that is hard. But you've got to push past that and just enjoy the show and not worry about what color people are.
And having had to critique that show as one of my jobs for Mouse Planet, I saw it countless times, and I'm sure I saw Cooper Hall. Yeah. I definitely saw the Black actress that played Elsa once. I recall that. I want to say one of the Olafs was Black also. I think I saw the show. I mean, I told you it's 5 deep. I think I saw it 4 times before I critiqued it. And I think I saw every single time I saw a different Olaf, but sometimes I saw it the same.
When you say 5 deep, you mean there were 5 different casts?
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. That's right.
Because all of the Disney hires working actors. They hire them through their agent. The agent gets a cut on those actors at that theater.
Right.
Which, again, back to safety, Disney will not be opening the theaters or the parades or the fireworks due to COVID-19. And they will, of course, will only open if safe. So, yeah. And let me tell you, sitting in the audience, what audience members did not even bat an eye at the colors of the actors?
I mean, why would they, right? Especially
children.
Because the people who are really enjoying this, that's exactly what I was thinking, are children. And, you know, of course, children, no one is born racist, right? I mean, this is something that everybody knows. Racism is taught. So, you know, the more we can show children that what they already believe, that color doesn't matter whatsoever. Everyone sees it, right? But it doesn't shouldn't matter, children already believe that. So what would a better way to reinforce that than by showing them characters they already love, right? What kid doesn't love Frozen already? And then they go in and they watch this show, and then they see actors of color playing these roles that they love, and that just reinforces these beautiful notions that they already have, that color absolutely doesn't matter. You know, it doesn't hurt their enjoyment of it. And if we as adults could just learn that, and these are difficult conversations to have.
Well, that goes into it's funny how we bridge the two topics. Pandemic's not over, and Hollywood opens tomorrow, Seth.
Yeah, we'll be working
tomorrow being Friday. Yes, this is taped Friday, June 12th. Are you going to be on set tomorrow, Seth?
You know, I better take my phone off airplane mode so that I can start getting all those calls, so that I can start showing up on set.
I actually have to bow out. You're going to have to finish. So I have 6 auditions. No, this is the point.
Oh my goodness, Todd.
Just like equity, just like equity at Disney World, Actors Equity, Governor Gavin Newsom has said Hollywood could produce tomorrow, but SAG-AFTRA hasn't spoken out on it, and there's plenty of unions. I mean, that just means there's a 20-page report.
Yep, 20-page
from SAG-AFTRA.
Report. From the different unions. They sort of, from what I understand, the different unions coordinated, IATSE, et cetera. They all got together with their epidemiologists, et cetera, and made quite a long list of recommendations to, I guess, the state governments, or at least the city governments, New York and Los Angeles and things like that, about how to reopen, you know, the major production cities. Areas. They said they put these recommendations into these different cities. So hopefully these cities will take this seriously. I mean, they have to, right? Because the unions, they won't work unless all these guidelines are met. So as Todd was saying, despite Hollywood being quote unquote open, we'll see what that really means. And then what else is happening? The movie theaters are also
tomorrow they open too, they say,
opening.
but like I think AMC's not opening. I mean, again, they can't just open without having a procedure in place.
A plan, yeah, for distancing and capacity and all that. And we're not going to get into those details.
Well, we can't because it hasn't happened yet.
Right, it hasn't happened yet, so we'll see. So, you know, as exciting as it sort of is, I have to keep I have to curb my enthusiasm, and I have to prepare myself, and I recommend everyone kind of just take a deep breath and roll with the punches on all of this, because we'll see where it leads us as far as this reopening. It could, my gut tells me that if it does reopen, it might not, probably won't reopen for too terribly long. You know, of course, there's all the rumors that the pandemic will return in full force at some point. We've seen little spikes already, right? And so,
well, there's a pandemic would have a spike, which is happening now.
Yeah.
And then there's in history, this isn't, we're not making it up. There's a second wave that generally, so, you know, who knows?
Yeah. And I'm not sure where we are time-wise, but
we're good. We're doing good. I guess what are your predictions for how is it, you know, we're going to dig deep into that article about what they said. It's too soon. What's your predictions of how Hollywood's going to go and what they're going to talk about?
As far as diversity?
Yeah, exactly. Diversity and how they're going to handle shooting in a pandemic.
Well, I think there'll be, like we've already seen, Tyler Perry's put out a list of things that he's going to do for bringing production back for Tyler Perry Studios. Very strict. I forget, it's a laundry list of things that everyone involved is going to have to adhere to. And so I think what's going to happen is you're going to see more things like that, and it'll be like a wait and see kind of thing, you know, and if these restrictions seem to be working, and if they can produce things, and if, you know, the contact tracing doesn't show that there are any cases related to productions, then, more and more things will keep happening. I actually think, what I think is that there will be a lot of outdoor stuff shot, um, because that lessens the risk. And I imagine there'll be looser restrictions upon productions that take place outdoors, or at least slightly looser, right? Because you're outside.
Well, Tyler Perry is going to, from what I read, if anything's changed, and remember everybody, Georgia opened before New York and California. So
Right.
there was more time and there was more, these things were printed, but the entire cast and crew will be in quarantine during the entire shoot. And they will be continually tested and tested. And
Right.
apparently I read somewhere, somebody, and I, too many names today, but there's a film proposed at Universal, I wanted to say. A very small film, no
Right.
extras, same thing. Universal's prepared to, it'll probably go to a bunch of stars to be the first people to put their toes in the water.
Right.
And it'll probably be a very limited cast, but the screenplay is small cast. Every single person will be on the Universal lot, will be housed, will be tested throughout the whole film. I mean, they're not going to leave the set
Right. So they'll be
until
just
they're done filming.
like it sounds to me then the whole production will essentially be quarantined,
Yes.
both together and in their individual ways.
I think we're going to see more period. Speaking of Hollywood and pulling all of that in, the Netflix Ryan Murphy version of Hollywood, which is set in the year 1947 and 1948, solidly 30 years, 40 years after the Spanish flu, and 50 years, 60 years, 70 years before the COVID-19. I mean, you'll set, I think we'll see a lot more period pieces is my prediction.
I like that. Yeah. And that would not surprise me at all to see something about the Spanish flu, and it'll probably
I don't
be,
know about that.
you don't think that they'll have a project like that to sort of parallel the COVID-19
I don't know who's going to want to see
outbreak?
that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it'll
in,
be. I'm not saying it'll be all about that, but I think it could take place. Whatever the
could,
story is takes place during that time period.
I think things will be set in a time period where there's no pandemics, so we can just focus on the human story,
Yeah,
the love story, the drama, the mystery, whatever it is, and that will be our break from everyday life of dealing with a pandemic, which I guess does bring us to taking care of ourselves and being healthy.
yeah, we really want to focus on, well, for me especially, mental health and really taking care of yourself. I mean, I think some of the physical health things, they're pretty obvious, right? You wear a face mask, you stay away from other people, you physically
Wash your
distance,
hands.
you wash your hands. I do want to throw in here that I think that I've always thought that this phrase social distancing is crazy. Like, you don't really want to be socially distant from your friends. Like, they're your friends. You want to call them on the phone, you want to talk to them on the computer, but you do want to stay physically distant, right? So that you don't, hurt anybody through potential infection.
Like
Anyway,
week 2 of the pandemic, somebody had a different term, but it didn't catch on because somebody said the same thing you said.
yeah,
So
it's physically distant, socially close, right? Is a sign that I saw
there
at
you
one of
go.
the
I like
protests
that.
I
You
went
heard
to.
it here on The Outsiders.
Well, I saw it at a protest. I can't take credit for that, but
I was going to give it to you.
but I love taking credit, but not this time. Um, but no, about mental health. Last week I went through a period of depression. Between the pandemic and then all of the civil unrest, all of the protests, which despite the fact that I 100% agreed with the message, it was hard. It was hard for me to make that sort of to reconcile all of that in my brain. And it got to me, and I had to really take a step back, practice self-care. My wife had to be very patient with me. Thanks to her. It was a really hard time. So I encourage everyone out there to do their utmost to take care of their mental health, whatever that means. You reach out to your friends, you find a therapist, all of those things that people do. Just sometimes for me, it's just acknowledging that you're not feeling so great mentally, and sometimes even that can be the first step. It loses some of its power just by acknowledging it. It's something I've struggled with my whole life. And what else do we want to talk about regarding all of that?
Well, it's just hard being an actor, period, and all this
Exactly.
uncertainty of going back and
Yeah,
auditioning is to add that layer is just
it's hard. Yeah, are we going back? Aren't we? What does that mean as an actor? Like, is it going to continue to be self tapes? Will I be seen in person? You know, we're opening, but we're not really opening. We could just go back into quarantine. There's a lot. There's a lot of layers there um, to be dealt with.
you were going to read something at the top of the show, but
Yeah,
I
and
think
I
it works
forgot
out at
to.
the, and that's okay. Cause I think we got rambling, we got talking and,
No, we ramble. That's you. You're right.
so we're the digressions and the ramblings. But why don't you read that? That's amazing. You
Yeah.
read that to me.
So Mark Cuban, he's the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, and he had a very interesting article come out. I found it on Yahoo News, where he talked about how difficult it is for white people to talk about race, but how necessary it is to talk about it in ways that move the conversation forward. So I'm just going to read the whole thing because I think it's pretty great. I need all of us to really open up and talk to each other, even when it's difficult, even when it's not something we're comfortable with, particularly those of us who look like me, the white people, because it's hard to discuss race when you're white. The reality is, to be brutally honest, when people talk about white privilege, we get defensive. We all have this mechanism that I call manufactured equivalency to try to protect ourselves. We'll say, I have a lot of black friends. We'll say, I grew up in a mixed community, so I'm not like that. I can't possibly be someone who takes advantage of white privilege. And we manufacture this equivalency. It's incumbent on us to stop doing that because that doesn't move us forward when we do that. That's part of having a courageous conversation. So I think that's a good place to end.
It
Uh,
is. And we 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 want you to let us know what you think of the show and if you have anything to add, and let us know your experiences. And how do you
Please,
do that, Seth?
you send us an email.
Do we have an email address yet, Seth?
We actually do have an email address.
Okay, I'll write it down.
Okay. Hold on. You got it?
I got a pen.
Okay. It's the Outsiders Biz. That's the Outsiders Biz at gmail.com.
The
Also,
Outsiders Biz with a Z at gmail.com. Is that
that's
correct?
correct. And I want to add in there that you will start to hear our podcasts on Spotify. Our first episode is already up there. This episode is going to be up there soon. And so we're slowly getting there. We're building out.
We're
And
on.
that's the other thing I wanted to mention. Jump back to the email. You know, this podcast, we started this to build community. So really feel free to email us about anything. About if you just want to connect and say, hey, I'm having a hard time. You know, whatever you want to say to us in an email, that is fine. It's not limited to just questions about the industry or anything like that.
Cool. And follow us on Facebook,
Yeah, we're out there.
Twitter,
Twitter,
and Instagram.
Instagram. And we're putting this up on YouTube, of course. So thank you very much for your
Sheesh.
time. Yeah, everything. Thank you very much for your time. And we will talk to you next time.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.